Mary sighed deeply as she watched the rain pour from the window of her small one-bedroom apartment. It was December. The Harmattan breeze mixed with the faint sound of Christmas carols from a neighbor's radio. But for Mary, this year's Christmas held no joy. She had lost her job 3 months ago, and providing for her 2 children, James and little Mercy, had become a daily battle. "Mommy, will we have jollof rice for Christmas?" Mercy asked, her big, curious eyes looking up at her mother. Mary smiled faintly, hiding the ache in her heart. "We will, my dear. God will provide." James, who was older and more observant, glanced at his mother and noticed the tears she quickly wiped away. He understood that things were hard, but he couldn't bear to see his mother sad. "Don't worry, Mom," James said confidently. "I'll find a way to help." That evening, James went out into the streets of their small town. He was determined to earn some money, no matter how little. He offered to run errands, carry loads, and even help a local carpenter sweep his shop. By the end of the day, he had earned only N500. It wasn't much, but to James, it was a start. Meanwhile, Mary sat in the dimly lit room praying silently. "Lord, it's Christmas. Please show us your mercy," she whispered, her hands clasped tightly. The next day, Eunice, Mary's childhood friend, came to visit. Eunice had recently moved back to town after spending years in Lagos. She had heard about Mary's struggles and brought some groceries as a gift. "Mary, I know things are tough, but I believe better days are coming," Eunice said, her voice warm and reassuring. Mary hugged her friend tightly. "Thank you, Eunice. God bless you." As Christmas Day approached, the family still had no decorations, no new clothes, and no guarantee of a feast. Yet Mary continued to encourage her children. "Christmas is not just about rice and chicken," she told them one evening. "It's about love, kindness, and the gift of hope." On Christmas Eve, something unexpected happened. A knock came at their door. When Mary opened it, she found an elderly man dressed in tattered clothes holding a small sack. "Good evening, Ma," the man said, bowing slightly. "Please, I haven't eaten all day. Can you spare me some food?" Mary hesitated. The little Gary they had left was meant to last them through Christmas Day, but she couldn't turn the man away. She invited him in and shared the last of their food. As the man ate, he smiled warmly at Mary and her children. "You have a good heart," he said. "May God bless your home abundantly." The next morning, Christmas Day, Mary woke up to the sound of voices outside. When she opened the door, she was stunned. A group of people from the local church stood there with bags of food, clothes, and even toys for the children. "We heard about your kindness to the old man last night," one of them explained. "He told us about your situation and asked us to bless your family." Mary's eyes filled with tears as she knelt to thank God. James and Mercy danced around with joy, holding their new toys. As the day went on, the little apartment was filled with laughter, music, and the aroma of delicious food. Mary realized that this was a Christmas miracle, proof that kindness and faith never go unrewarded. And just when she thought the day couldn't get any better, there was another knock at the door. Mary opened the door to find a man standing there with a wide smile on his face. He was dressed neatly, holding a large envelope in his hand. "Good afternoon, Ma," he greeted warmly. "My name is Mr. Johnson. I'm from the Community Development Office. May I come in?" Mary hesitated for a moment, unsure of what this visit meant, but his kind smile reassured her, so she stepped aside to let him in. As Mr. Johnson sat down, his gaze swept over the small but now lively room filled with the sound of Mercy giggling and James showing off his new toy truck. "I heard about your story," Mr. Johnson began. "The elderly man you helped last night is a retired principal from one of the biggest schools in the state. He was deeply touched by your kindness and brought your situation to my attention. He insisted that someone like you deserves support, not just for Christmas, but for a fresh start." Mary's heart raced as she listened. What could this mean? Mr. Johnson handed her the envelope. "Inside is a letter confirming you've been shortlisted for a scholarship fund sponsored by our community development program. It will cover the school fees for James and Mercy up to university level. Also, we've arranged for you to start a small business of your choice." Mary's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Tears streamed down her face as she read the letter. "Thank you, sir," she managed to say, her voice breaking. "I don't know how to repay this kindness." "You've already repaid it with your heart of gold," Mr. Johnson replied. "But there's one more thing." Mary looked at him curiously. "The old man also mentioned you used to be a seamstress. Is that true?" Mary nodded. "Yes, but I had to sell my sewing machine to pay our rent months ago." Mr. Johnson smiled. "Well, someone wants to help you get back on your feet. Wait here." He stepped outside and returned moments later with two other men carrying a brand new sewing machine and a box of fabrics. "This is from the principal," Mr. Johnson explained. "He believes in giving people a chance to thrive. He said to tell you, keep sewing dreams into reality." Mary clutched her chest, overwhelmed by emotion. She dropped to her knees, thanking God repeatedly. That Christmas turned out to be the most joyful and unforgettable one for Mary's family. The small apartment was now filled with the aroma of food, the hum of a new sewing machine, and the laughter of children who no longer had to worry about tomorrow. Yet, in the midst of all the celebration, James kept thinking about the old man. He decided to ask, "Mommy, where is the man now? I'd like to thank him too." Mary paused. "You're right. We should go and see him." The next day they went to the address Mr. Johnson had given them. But when they arrived, the house was quiet, almost abandoned. An old neighbor came out and greeted them. "Good afternoon, Ma. Please, we're looking for the elderly man who lives here," Mary explained. The woman's expression changed to one of surprise. "You must be mistaken. Nobody has lived here for years." Mary blinked in confusion. "But he came to my house on Christmas Eve. He asked for food." The woman shook her head. "The only man who lived here was Mr. Aide, the retired principal, but he passed away 2 years ago." Mary's knees went weak, and James had to hold her. She turned to her children, her voice trembling. "Do you understand what this means?" James looked at her with wide eyes. "Mommy, was he an angel?" Mary hugged her children tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Maybe he was. Maybe God sent him to remind us that miracles happen to those who believe." Mary stood frozen for a moment, her mind racing as she processed the neighbor's words. How could the man who had been in her home just days ago have been gone for years? It all felt surreal. James and Mercy, too young to grasp the depth of what had just happened, looked to their mother for answers. "Let's go home," Mary finally said, holding their hands tightly. Her heart was heavy, but it was also full of gratitude. She didn't have all the answers, but she was certain of one thing: something extraordinary had happened. Back at home, the sewing machine hummed softly as Mary worked late into the night. The word had quickly spread around the neighborhood about her new venture, and orders had already started coming in. She poured all her energy into her work, determined to make the most of the opportunity she'd been given. Meanwhile, James had been thinking about how he could contribute. Watching his mother work so hard inspired him to do more. "Mommy," James said one evening as they ate dinner, "can I help you with the business? Maybe I can deliver the clothes to customers or even learn how to sew." Mary smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "Of course, my son. You can help me in any way you want," Mercy chimed in, her small voice eager. "I'll help too, Mommy. I can fold the clothes and pack them." Mary laughed softly, hugging her children close. "We're a team now. Together we'll make this work." The weeks flew by, and Mary's business began to flourish. Customers praised her skill, and many returned with more orders. She was able to buy more fabrics, pay off debts, and even save a little. But as the days turned into weeks, Mary couldn't shake the feeling that the mysterious man was still watching over them. She often found small signs: an unexpected breeze when she prayed, a soft knock on the door with no one there, or even the way her children would suddenly laugh as if someone had whispered a joke to them. One day, Eunice visited again, this time with exciting news. "Mary, there's a sewing competition happening in Lagos," Eunice said, holding up a flyer. "The winner gets N1 million and a scholarship to learn advanced sewing techniques." Mary's eyes widened. "N1 million? That could change everything." "Yes, and you're talented enough to win," Eunice said confidently. "You just need to register and prepare your best designs." Mary hesitated. The thought of competing in such a big event was daunting, but as she looked at her children, she knew she had to try. For weeks, Mary worked tirelessly, designing and creating her entries for the competition. James and Mercy became her biggest cheerleaders, helping her in every way they could. Finally, the day of the competition arrived. Mary traveled to Lagos with Eunice by her side, nervous but hopeful. The event was grander than anything Mary had ever imagined. Designers from all over the country showcased their creations, each more stunning than the last. But Mary's designs stood out for their simplicity and elegance, a reflection of her journey and her resilience. As the judges announced the winner, Mary held her breath. And the first prize goes to Mary Solomon. The crowd erupted into applause as Mary stood frozen in shock. Tears streamed down her face as she walked to the stage, her hands trembling as she accepted the prize. "This is not just my victory," Mary said, her voice steady but emotional. "This is for every mother struggling to make ends meet, for every child who dares to dream, and for the unseen hands that guide us when we need it most." When Mary returned home, life changed for the better. With her prize money, she was able to move her family into a bigger house, expand her business, and even start a foundation to help other women like herself. But amidst all the success, Mary never forgot the mysterious man who had knocked on her door that fateful Christmas Eve. She often told her story to anyone who would listen, reminding them that miracles happen when you least expect them. Months turned into years, and Mary's life transformed in ways she never imagined. Her sewing business grew into a well-known brand, Mercy Threads, named after her daughter. With James's knack for organization and Mercy's creative flair, the family worked together to build something truly special. Mary never forgot the struggles that brought her to this point, nor the mysterious old man who had appeared at her lowest moment. She believed with all her heart that he had been a divine messenger, sent to remind her of the power of faith, kindness, and perseverance. One day, as Mary sat in her spacious living room, now filled with laughter and love, James approached her with an envelope. "Mommy, this came for you," he said, handing it over. Mary opened it and gasped. Inside was an invitation to an award ceremony in Lagos. The letter explained that she had been nominated for the Humanitarian of the Year award for her foundation, which had helped over 200 women start their own businesses. "God is good," Mary whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. On the day of the ceremony, Mary stood on stage, her family beaming in the audience. As she accepted the award, she looked at the crowd and spoke from her heart. "When I was at my lowest, all I had was faith. Faith that tomorrow could be better. Faith that my kindness would be repaid. And it was, through the hands of strangers, through the love of my children, and through the grace of God. This award is not just mine. It belongs to every woman who dares to dream, every child who refuses to give up, and every soul who chooses to spread kindness in a world that desperately needs it." The audience rose to their feet, clapping and cheering. Among the crowd, Mary thought she saw a familiar figure, the old man who had knocked on her door that Christmas Eve. She blinked, and he was gone. As the family returned home that evening, James and Mercy couldn't stop talking about the ceremony. "Mommy, you're a hero," Mercy said, hugging her tightly. "No, my dear," Mary replied, smiling. "I'm just a mother who believed in miracles." That Christmas, the family gathered in their new home surrounded by friends, neighbors, and women Mary had helped through her foundation. The house was filled with the aroma of jollof rice, roasted chicken, and freshly baked bread. Laughter echoed through the air as children played and adults shared stories of hope and resilience. As the night wore on, Mary sat quietly by the Christmas tree, watching her children and friends with a heart full of gratitude. James walked over and sat beside her. "Mommy, do you ever wonder who that old man really was?" Mary smiled, her eyes twinkling. "I don't need to wonder, my son. He was a miracle, a reminder that God works in mysterious ways." James nodded thoughtfully, then leaned his head on his mother's shoulder. As the clock struck midnight, marking the start of a new Christmas day, Mary whispered a prayer of thanks. She had come so far, And though the journey had been hard, it had also been beautiful. And as she looked at the joy and love around her, she knew one thing for sure. Christmas was not just about the gifts or the food. It was about the gift of love, the power of hope, and the beauty of second chances. No matter how hard life gets, never lose hope. Your kindness, no matter how small, can create a ripple effect that changes lives. Keep believing, stay strong, and always spread love wherever you go. Thank you so much for watching this story. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let's inspire more people together. See you in the next video.